Hi, and welcome to Ed Talk. This is the show that discusses topics that impact our local Nevada County schools. Today, my guest is Chris Espedal. Chris is the Director of School Safety in my office, but overseeing all the schools in Nevada County. So, Chris, welcome to our show.
Thanks so much, Scott. It's good to be here.
Thank you. So, with that, the role, Director of School Safety, what is that?
Well, that's a loaded question. It is something different every single day. Truly, Scott, what it is the Nevada County Superintendent of Schools office has created this position, and it's been almost 10 years, to help be a resource to those schools in our community that need that support for developing comprehensive school safety plans, for responding to incidents. Really, I am like a library book you check out and give it back when you're done.
On there. Well, that's a pretty great and brief synopsis. And the reason we decided to have Chris on today is school safety is always a big topic for us. Always concerned, hoping we never have to use it, but always making sure we're ready with that. Now, you said this has been 10 years that you've been doing this, and I know the job has morphed, but what prepared you in your previous careers to step into this role?
All right, so starting back many years ago, I started out in the medical field, and I actually worked in a medical office, back office, for many years. I was an EMT, and then I was hired by the federal and state government as a disaster medical assistance team member, and that really got me interested in emergency management. So after all those years, I went back to school and got my degree in hospital administration and emergency management. When I was working for the high school district after my medical stint in a medical office, I was in the nurse's office at Bear River High School. And I had the great opportunity to work together with Cindy Gordon, and we implemented the Readiness Emergency Management for Schools grant. And that really got me on the road to what needs to be done in school sites to keep both students and staff safe. So from there, I was stolen by the county office.
That was by my predecessor. I didn't do the stealing.
Right. Nope. Shar Johns did the stealing. And Holly. And we just created the position to meet the needs of our county, our schools, to support them in the development of their plans, implementation of their plans, and to come alongside them as a resource when they have incidents on their campuses.
Right. And we'll discuss those more in topic. But your role, you said before, you're doing the state and federal disaster relief teams. What is that? 'Cause I find that fascinating. I mean, I know, but to tell our audience what that is.
I just recently retired from those teams. I've been on them since Hurricane Katrina. So the great thing is that both the federal and state have programs. It's DMAT CA 11, and that's the team that I served on at a federal level, and then the CalMat team in California. But our teams would deploy when a community was declared a disaster, and they reached out for government support. Resources are overwhelmed, and they call on us. And what we did was we set up standalone hospitals, and our tent could service those communities whose hospitals were destroyed or overwhelmed and in the event of a disaster, and we helped to meet the needs of that community in the event of a disaster. So it took me all over. I have had wonderful experiences in Puerto Rico, and like I said, Katrina. I was deployed most recently to the Camp Fire in Paradise, and just amazing work that's done by a gifted team of doctors, nurses, paramedics, EMTs, pharmacists, all of us working together.
Right, and with that background, definitely helped set up what needs to be done in our schools, the work that we bring in all our first responders together,
right?
How that looks, because most of us, thank goodness, have never experienced a disaster. We really don't know how to set things up. So,
right.
Great skill set.
Those experiences really have helped me develop this job and expand it. And the first year, I spent collaborating, meeting all the chiefs of police and our fire service, amazing men and women of our first responding group here in Nevada County, and Nevada County Behavioral Health, and just pulling together a collaboration of people who would be needed in the event of an emergency, developing relationships. And over these 10 years, they're my friends now.
Yeah, I'll bet. Without those relationships, nothing would happen.
Right.
Yeah, you
right.
need them to get everybody to come together in the case of an emergency.
Yeah, and the good thing is, Scott, that when emergencies have happened here that have affected Nevada County, I know who to call, they know who I am, and we quickly work together to meet those needs. Something as, I'll say simple, but it really wasn't simple, with the Oroville Dam, when the evacuation happened there.
They're afraid that the dam was going to go several
Right.
years ago. Yeah.
We stood up centers here, evacuation centers in Nevada County, and it all just worked beautifully together because of the road that was laid in collaboration with the superintendent of schools office.
Right, to just make it a smooth transition. And I know all the people that were evacuated, bringing them up to the different sites here in the county.
Right.
Right. Well, Chris, we are reaching the halfway point of this school year, amazingly enough. And what are the priorities right now related to safety on our school campuses?
That's a great question, Scott. And it's really changed this year because we're coming off the heels of COVID, where our focus really shifted from that COVID prevention plan, COVID reopening plan for schools, and so much of our focus was there that now the remainder of this school year and going into the school year even, I'm really trying to zero in on school safety again. Let's get back to the basics.
Right,
That's
right.
it. Back to the basics on school safety and honing in on the plans that are in place.
Right, and I know we've talked about that with the pandemic. I know we're not at the end of the pandemic, but mandates are being lifted, and we're learning to live with COVID. That some of the other things may have gone by the wayside as districts and our charter schools and our private schools were concerned about keeping kids safe and staff safe and following all the regulations and guidelines instead of the things we had been doing before the pandemic.
Right.
Retraining.
Retraining and still keeping COVID, being mindful of it and planning, preparing for that, trying to mitigate any continued episodes or pandemics. But yes, getting the focus back on, are our plans in place? Have they changed? Do they need to change? And taking a look at that and then running those drills. That's where I think my focus is the second half of the year, is really encouraging school sites to run those drills effectively, efficiently, and to take a look at them, debrief after, and improve where they need improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. To get back to that, everybody thinking about it. Where's your safety plan? What do you do? Where's the meeting point? Who do you call? Responsibilities and that. The other big concern you and I talk a lot about, and that's as summer approaches, which it's not yet, but it will at some point, is wildland fires. And we've been probably impacted by that more than any other safety issue here in Nevada County in probably the last 3-4 years with that. So how do we prepare our school sites for that, if you can let our audience know?
Yes.
The work behind that is not simple.
It's not simple, and it's ongoing. And the great thing is, Scott, that we have an amazing Nevada County Office of Emergency Services. I just recently met with Craig there and talked about how do we push out information to our school sites, to our parents, to our students, because we want to train from the ground up. We want our students to know what to do as well. So the Office of Emergency Services with Code Red, we just had a drill this week on that, and the Know Your Zone, all those type of things. We can be that conduit to push out information to our families so they are prepared. And just recently, and I know you received an email as well, we as public employees working at schools are disaster service workers, essential workers.
Sometimes we forget when we sign our contracts.
That's
We're
right.
so excited about a job, you don't realize.
Right.
Yeah, why don't you tell our audience what that actually means?
So with that comes a responsibility to the sites that we serve. If we are at work and a disaster happens, we have to stay there. We have responsibilities to meet the needs of our students and staff that may be affected. And we, as disaster service or essential workers, we can't leave until you give the okay for us to go, that all the needs on that site have been met.
Right.
So having plans in place for that at home is what's essential. Have our staff really mindful, are they prepared at home for an emergency so they can stay at a school site and do the job that they are called to do?
Yeah, absolutely. In the case of wildland fires, I get people to say, well, what's the plan for our schools? And there is no single plan for a school because it depends where it is, the geography. That plays a huge role. So I want to talk a little bit about that, how we have different plans for different school sites here in the county.
Right. So the plan really is dependent, exactly what you said. What kind of incident are we seeing? What direction is the wind blowing? How fast is the fire moving? Really, they create their own weather, those wildland fires. And so having a plan in place, every parent would love to know, where are you taking my student? We can't answer that. If we have the time to evacuate, of course, that's what we would want to do. But in meeting with our law enforcement, Office of Emergency Services, and our fire services, the plan is, if that wildland fire, similar to the one that we saw at the campfire, was coming so quickly that we could not safely evacuate, we would do what's called a shelter in place. And our schools have selected a building on their site where they will take all the students and staff in an orderly and calm fashion.
Key.
And they would move into that safe place. Usually it's a gymnasium or a multi-purpose room. And that's where they would stay. And then our fire services would come and defend the building. So they would shelter there. And we plan that, we prepare for it, and we train for it. We have response teams on every school site that has a job to do. Some of them might be looking for spot fires until the fire department gets there. So those fire extinguishers or hoses, all those things are in place, and teams are ready to go to keep our students safe.
Right, and that defend is a tough thing. I know in Paradise, when we look back to that, there was the group of people that realized there was no way out when they were downtown, and they did shelter in place. Fire department defended, and it worked. And
Absolutely.
In that place. And some of our schools now, as they're doing some remodeling or funds become available, are putting fireproof siding on a lot of them, and that's their designated spot. So a lot going on, a lot of mitigation of trees, bushes. I mean, that's ongoing. As you look out anybody's door here in Nevada County, it's like, oh my gosh.
And then you have to consider ingress, egress. At many of our school sites, it's one way in, one way out. And so I would say that our community, one of the things that we want them to know is, what are your ways in and out, to and from work? We discovered.
Yes, we did, the hard way.
Yes, we discovered the hard way when we had the Bennett fire that Crown Point Circle, where we're located, is a circle.
Yes.
And so ingress,
one way out.
That's correct.
Yep.
And gridlock happens quickly. But then when you get out with that fire at the bottom of Idaho, Maryland, many of our staff members didn't know how to get home going a different way.
Different route, if the normal route was shut, they didn't know. And I know you've always preached to everybody, know multiple ways to get to where you need to be.
That's right. And so we learned, I think you and I led the pack as we tried to get over to Nevada Union High School to open up that evacuation site, a different way out.
Yep, we had to take the long way out from Crown Point and around and up through Union Hill and back around a big giant circle to get to where we needed to be to serve the community with that. You mentioned a little bit about parents and at home. So I wanted to touch on that a little bit more about what parents can do at home for safety there, considering their students might be at school. I mean, plans.
Right. Yeah. So that Ready, Set, Go handbook that comes from the Office of Emergency Service, it is a amazing tool for everybody at home to use. And this year, I kind of tucked them into all of the COVID testing kits that went home with students. So we would assure that everyone received one of those. But I think making plans, Scott, my biggest concern is, what if the student's home alone?
Right.
What if they're at the bus stop? What if they were just dropped off and are not knowing what to do or where to go? Making those type of plans. If a wildland fire should sweep through at those times, parents aren't home, students are alone, then what is the plan?
Right.
Is there a neighbor that could step up to pick the student up, or what's the plan?
Yeah, and I know we had that happen at the Bennett fire. We had
We
a
did.
student who'd been, I believe, dropped off the bus. The Bennett fire hit. Our sheriff's department was going around
Yep.
and saw her and put her in the squad car and brought her to our evacuation center.
Right.
We assigned a staff member to be with her till we could get a hold of her parents.
Right.
Yeah, so it is good to know. So if you're a parent and you're watching the news and you see that fire coming towards your house and you know your child's there,
Right.
what is the plan?
Yes.
Yeah.
So again, that student was at a bus stop, I believe,
Yeah.
but there were many when law enforcement were doing evacuations that were home alone.
Yeah.
And that's okay, depending on their age.
Right.
But what's the plan? Where will
they
they go?
know.
How will they get there? And things
Yeah,
to
the
think
time
about.
to think about it, unfortunately, is now.
Yes.
Not at the time. That's
Right.
Just, that's not good. So what message would you want to convey to our community in the event of a disaster that affects our Nevada County schools?
I think the message that I would want to give our community is trust the process. We have plans in place. We have so many meetings regularly. We meet monthly with our first responders, social services, behavioral health, law enforcement monthly, and all our school administrators to talk about what's happening on our streets and in our schools and being prepared. And there are plans in place. And as a parent, I know it would be hard to trust that your students are safe in a shelter in place. But trusting the process, knowing knowing where to go to get information, and that Nevada County website, the dashboard, so much information there, knowing zones, knowing that you're signed up for Code Red to get information, and really knowing what your student's school plan is and how you would get information so you're not overloading the system,
Right.
but trusting the system.
Right, and two thoughts come to mind when you discuss that. One is, as a parent and a grandparent now, my natural reaction would be get to the school to help my child or my grandchild. That's probably the worst thing you can do because, as we mentioned, we have small roads.
Right.
And you could block emergency services from getting in or out and actually create more of an issue.
Right. Delay the response of
Yeah.
our first responders by that gridlock
Yeah.
that happens
Yeah.
on many of our roads here. So trusting the process,
Yep.
knowing that there are plans in place, and schools will push out information as quickly as they can. Once that information is vetted, we know it's the truth,
Right.
then we push it out as quickly as we can.
And that was my second thought, is in today's world where people are constantly looking at their phones for updated information minutely. If there's something going on with your child, you want updated information, and sometimes that doesn't happen in the real world in an event like this, because you said we want to vet the information to make sure it's accurate and before it goes out.
Absolutely.
And instead of just lots of noise going out that may or may not be valid.
Right. Anything that comes from the superintendent of schools office is vetted first. And my best friend is Pascal at Ubinet.
Yeah, she's
She
great.
is an amazing provider of information, trusted information, vetted information. And trusting that, knowing that I know parents are concerned and they jump on the social media and not all that information is accurate. So making sure that you know how your school will communicate and giving us that time to be sure the information is accurate.
Yeah. Oftentimes students it seems every student has a phone,
Yeah.
and they're calling from classrooms telling parents what's happening, but they most likely don't know the full picture and the
Right.
scope of what really is happening. So,
Yeah. And our desire at all our school sites is that we get information out to staff so they can de-escalate the fears in the classroom and give the students the information, and so they can make decisions based on what they hear, see, and know. And that's our first job, is to provide that information to the staff in the event of an emergency. They provide it to the students. And then as a resource, a superintendent of schools can always push out those safety alerts to all schools
Right.
so parents can get information.
Right. Check our website. We put it out there, but we only update it as the information is accurate.
Right.
Now, you mentioned staff members. So what do we do in our county to train staff members for safety?
So that's what I've been busy doing
Yes.
lately as we have moved into the middle of the school year. I go alongside law enforcement and sometimes even our fire services, and we do trainings with staff, one-on-one trainings. And the way that we've been doing the trainings this year is a little different. It's not the PowerPoint click through that you can choose to look at and listen to or not.
Do something else.
Right.
Yes,
I've really tried to make it more interactive and do some modified tabletop exercises where I'll give a scenario and give the staff time to turn and talk in your role at this time in this scenario. What would you do? Yeah. And then that input that we get from law or fire in that moment is just validating that what they're doing, the decisions they're making are good. Right. So school sites, give me a call, and I plan to go out and do trainings, and the staff are trained in that way.
Right, yeah, and it's for our public schools, which are both charter and districts, and I know we've also gone out to private schools.
Sure have.
Sent you out there to help that because they're all our Nevada County students, and we want to
Right.
keep everybody safe. One of the things I think we all fear, and though they're rare, is school shootings. And we had a horrible event in Uvalde. Series of events took place, some that may have, some mistakes appeared to have happened in that case. But what is the best practice for school sites to be prepared for a threat of that magnitude?
Yeah, that's a rough one.
That's tough. It's even tough to talk about, and you don't want to scare students in practicing.
Right.
That as well.
So we always ask that our staff prepare, not scare our students.
Right.
And so right now, best practices are the run, hide, fight model. And by the term fight, I'd like to replace that with counter, having a
Right.
plan in
Right.
place. We're not teaching our students to fight by any means.
Yeah.
Number one, if we could evacuate, knowing, making our decisions again based on what we hear, what we see, and what we know. So it's providing that information to our staff so they can make a decision on what to do. If it was safer to evacuate, let's just say they were out at recess or PE and they heard noise of shooting on the campus, rather than running back to where the danger is, we want them to evacuate if that's the safest to do, and then get to a safe place of cover, not just behind a bush hiding, but a safe place of cover should there be shooting in their direction. The second thing is if that was not safe to do, they go beyond hiding and they actually barricade doors, but always with a plan to get out should that door be breached.
Right.
And the counter is, or the fight would be, if that door was breached, then we're going to do all we can to delay and distract, scream, yell, throw things, so people can get out while the intruder was getting in. And perhaps we're gonna assume law enforcement's already there on their way to take care of it. I'm happy to say that I have a lot of conversations with law enforcement, and they do a lot of training, and our law enforcement officers in Nevada County are phenomenal. They work together, receive the best of training. They go to our school sites, they train on our school sites, and they're prepared, and they go in.
Right.
They go in to stop that threat and protect our schools.
Right, and that was another question I was going to ask is about law enforcement practicing alongside staff. And I know you host that and kind of set those up at different districts who have the time and the ability to do that, to see what it's really like and set up a scenario.
Right, and there have been scenarios set up on some of our school sites when students are not present, where they're actually going in and simulating with sim rounds what that would look like, and getting to know our campuses, and that's the other
Very
thing.
important.
Yeah.
Because they're all so different.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's great. And the other thing we need to mention, our first responders often have kids in our schools.
Absolutely.
They have a very vested interest in keeping all our students safe. And
Right.
as you said, it's phenomenal, the cooperation between all our law enforcement agencies. They act really as one, not individuals, not just Grass Valley Police Department or Nevada City Police Department or Sheriff's Department or BLM or Park Service, or CHP. They're going to respond as one.
Right.
Yeah.
And in the event of a school shooting, our neighboring agencies would be there as quickly.
Yeah.
We've got Colfax coming in, Placer
Right.
County Sheriff, all those agencies would respond in a timely manner to give that support to our local agencies.
Right, and that also goes for fires.
Yes.
I know during the river fire, I think it was Sutter County that actually responded, and they're the ones who told me to leave my house.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's great. That response
unified
and
command,
yeah,
and
everybody gets
they
it.
all come in. Yeah,
Yep, no
and those
egos out
supporting
there.
agencies, right? And one thing, Scott, is in response to active assailant, we have to change the verbiage because it can be anything from gun to knife to car.
Right.
We want our students not to be afraid, but to be prepared no matter where they are, even if they're not at school. This training is valuable life skills, knowing the ingress, egress of a restaurant they're in, or a theater, or any shopping center. How do they get out?
Yep,
What
to be
do they
thinking.
do? So they're thinking
Yeah, it is a good
about
skill.
what could I do if I was threatened in
Yeah.
any way.
Yeah, I know. I don't look at a theater or a restaurant the same way I used to.
Right.
Go in and sit down. Not that it's paramount and ruining the event that I'm attending, but I kind of just look. Okay, there's a door over
Right.
there, a door over there, and okay, just kind of file it away.
Yes, and there's a reason that our flight attendants go through the same,
Right.
Our exits are
Yes,
here.
yes.
And if I'm on a plane, I'm looking too. I want to know, do I go forward? Do I go back?
Yeah.
Or in a restaurant, so many of us think the only way in or out is the front door,
door
the
we
way
came
we
in.
came in.
Yep.
There's a lot more
Yep.
exits, and knowing where the kitchen is,
Is- and
because that's
going
where
that way.
an exit will be.
Yep.
And that's important for our students, especially. I was at the mall recently, and when you're inside one of the stores in the mall, trying to figure out how to get out of there is difficult.
Yeah.
So teaching our students to look for the exit signs,
Right.
what they look like and where they are.
Yeah, because in an emergency, if you don't know where they are, they're kind of hard to see.
Yeah.
So with that, as we kind of wrap this up here, we got it. COVID. Like we said, we're coming to the end of it, but we're still providing testing kits and resources for our schools, aren't we?
That's funny you say that, because just before we came down to do this, I received an email from the county office or state CDE, and they said, "So, how many more COVID tests do you need to get out to your families for after spring break?" So the superintendent of schools office really became a distribution center, right? Receiving and distribution, and there were times that we had pallets to the ceiling of COVID tests.
60,000 tests sitting in our office.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so we have continued to provide testing free of charge to our staff, to our students. And now this new email that came out today is we can provide those tests to families as well that are uninsured, that may not be able to have
come get
access to tests. So I still have plenty at my office.
Right, yeah.
And we'll be requesting more as the school sites request them, so we can provide them for after spring break.
Great. Even though we want to kind of put the pandemic behind us,
We do.
still need to be smart about it.
Yes.
So with that, Chris, thank you so much. I hope our audience was enlightened a bit of what goes on behind the scenes at school safety. I want to thank Chris Espedal, our Director of School Safety in my office. She's an amazing person with her background and what we've done up here in Nevada County. And I hope it answers some questions. And any parents, if you have questions, reach out to your school. And they'll be happy to talk about it, some specific details. Probably not, because we need to keep some things close to the vest about that. But we thank you everybody for watching, and I hope you have a good day. Take care.